So movie theater chains, the big ones, the big boys, have pledged to invest more than $2 billion into their cinemas. This is going to be over a 3-year period, and the hope is to modernize and upgrade their theaters. So the participating companies account for 21,000 screens, and they account for 2/3 of the domestic box office take. I presumably that's from like maybe last year. The 8 companies are the usual suspects, but the few I've never heard of. So, of course, you have AMC, Regal Cinemas, Cinemark, Cineplex, Marcus Theaters Corporation, B&B Theaters, Harkins Theaters, and Santa Claus Entertainment. The only ones I really know are AMC, Regal, Cinemark, and Cineplex. So where are they? Where's this money going, right? So the major focal areas of investment are, I've broken them up into 2 categories: improvements and additions. So the improvements are basically everything that already exists. So they want to improve screens, the projections, the sound, concessions, theater seating, air conditioning, lighting, signage, carpeting, all of that stuff. Some of this stuff hasn't been updated in years, if not decades. So it's definitely a much needed kind of quality of life improvement that I think makes people... I mean, ultimately, people are superficial. So if they keep going to a movie theater that hasn't been updated really in a substantive way since 1998, it feels like it's like, well, if you guys don't care about this, why should I come and care and patronize your business? So all that stuff is great. What's really getting a lot of attention, though, are the additions. So there's talk, and this isn't all of these at all of the theaters, but some potential additions to the theater experience could be bars, which some of them already do, like a lot of Regals and have bars. Restaurants, even like a sit-down restaurant is in the theater somewhere. Arcades, a lot of theaters already have arcades. And in some cases, something like a pickleball court, right? All on this one property. I think I read about one of them having like a zip line somewhere in the theater. Again, not in an auditorium, but like in the building or on the same property. Kind of, this is an effort to make the movie theater a hub for entertainment and recreation. Of if you're gonna leave your house with your family, you could do a bunch of stuff with your family. We want to make the movie theater the one-stop shop for all of that stuff. The NATO president, so it's so funny that, so of course there's NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, the military alliance formed after World War II to contain the Soviet Union. That's NATO. But then you also have the National Association of Theater Owners. And you didn't think maybe you could change one word? Like maybe make it C, so it's NACO? NACO, National Association of Cinema Owners. Anyway, so the NATO president and CEO Michael O'Leary said, quote, "This is all part, frankly, of a larger effort on behalf of some of our members to provide movie-going fans with a more expansive experience, which goes beyond just going to the movies. It's all part of us responding to what consumers want when they go out for an evening," end quote. So, I think this is somewhat smart that, they have to accept... they can't just put their heads in the sand any longer. They have to accept that most people don't want to go to a movie theater. That if a majority of the population, if they had their way, they would just rather stay home and watch it, on streaming or something, right? So you need to draw them out of the house physically in some other way. And again, Variety notes that some theaters have already started adding things like pickleball courts and even zip lining. And I see a comment here from Viviana. So the movies will now be an amusement park? Exactly. It kind of feels... like it's just they're throwing a bunch of shit at the wall and they're going to see what sticks. And O'Leary continues here saying, quote, "You're going to create an environment which is more inviting, which people are going to not just want to go to, but they're going to want to come back to. I do think there's a direct correlation between the theater, the experience people have there, how they feel about it, and not just going, but wanting to come. So I do think that this is I do think that this investment will yield more people going to the movies in the future." So I think their hope is that, you maybe want to play pickleball, so you sign up at a court, which happens to be at an AMC, and then maybe by being there, you smell the smells, or you see a poster for a movie or something, and maybe you're like, maybe it's subliminal messaging, and you may be more likely to buy a theater ticket. So the big question is this needed? Well, really, there's 2 questions. Is something needed? Is a major change to the theater experience needed? Yes. Is this what's needed? Maybe, right? The improvements are desperately are, right? So for years, going even back to like the 50s when TV first became something that was in most Americans' homes, the big pitch that movie theaters made, it was always, you're going to get a superior experience in the theater. But that hasn't really been true for like a decade. Ever since we moved to digital projection, because back in the day, your Joe Schmo minimum wage teenager working the projection, like, there was a complicated process. They had to understand how to, filter the film strip through and make it look right, make sure it was all focused and everything. Now it really is just like a teenager clicks a button and maybe just sits there and makes sure it doesn't like turn off in the middle, right? So I can't tell you how many times I've been to movies in the past decade where the lighting is off, the sound is bad, it's too zoomed in, so it's like kind of cropping in a way that the cinematographer didn't want it to be that way. There's a weird color tint. Like it just hasn't been true in a decade. That I'm gonna get a superior experience at home in a lot of ways. In terms of just the sheer quality of the aesthetic part. Now there is obviously the intangible of like being with a group and an audience, but that rarely is that important. People, I think, overemphasize that. A lot of cinephiles really overemphasize the communal aspect of film, but it depends on the kind of movie. Like, it doesn't really need to be that communal. A lot of movies are more personal relationship, right? So again, the improvements are definitely needed. So no qualms from me about that, right? The additions are debatable, but only time will tell, right? None of these are bad enough themselves. It'll just be interesting to see, will they actually make a difference? If people can use the pickleball courts without having to see a movie, will this inclusion actually lead to conversion? Will people go to a pickleball court and then that will at some point in the near future down the road lead to them going to the movies? I don't know. And they might not be able to articulate the way I am, but I think consumers can tell, or they can feel or sense when a business is desperate. If you have a multimedia, and what I'm about to describe shouldn't make sense, but it does, like on a gut level. If you have a multimedia entertainment complex, say like a mall, which includes a movie theater, and also has restaurants and a bar and pickleball courts, that's acceptable. But if you have a movie theater offering a bunch of ancillary experiences, it feels at best incoherent and at worst desperate, right? And the AV Club ran an article by Mary Kate Carr, and the article was titled, quote, "Theaters are spending a ton to turn moviegoing into a Dave & Buster's trip," end quote. And that's 100% right. That it's like, will you undermine the kind of value of the movie theater? But then I think that leads to a sub-question. Is there the value of the movie theater? Like, it is not this sacred experience. Movie theaters back in the 50s and 60s were these massive movie palaces. It felt like this grand experience. And now you go and there's teenagers in the back. One of them's giving the other one a hand job, and there's gum everywhere, and there's people on their phone, and they're talking, and the screen sucks, and the food sucks, and it just sucks. So why I don't think movies have been this sacred experience for film lovers for a really long time. So the real solution, we just need smaller independent theaters, right? These chains that are like, oh shit, we gotta preserve the movie-going experience. They've gobbled up and or outcompeted smaller operations, right? And when you have a giant corporation, just the way it works, that they're more conservative, right? They're not gonna be as willing to experiment. So if you have more smaller independent theaters, they have the room to innovate in ways that the big chains can't. Again, just because of the nature of the size and their corporate nature, they're either too slow to change or too cautious to change, or both. So again, I'm really excited to see if they can, make those improvements. But will putting a bar, like if someone wants to go to a bar, are they going to go to the bar just to go to the bar? Or are they just only going to go when they're already going to the movie, right? The point of this is to get new people to go, or get people to go more often. All of these things just sound like things that, well, if I'm already going to be there, I'll do them. All right? You need to get people to want to go to the AMC bar happy hour after work. Like that's the people that you need. But I don't know.